Chapter 9 Emma, Now, June 28th, Dusk. Freezing cold water slapped Emma in the face. She gasped, swallowing a mouthful of river, her eyes stinging as waves crashed over her. The current was so strong it spun her around, her backpack buoying her up. Underwater rocks scraped against her legs, but when she tried to stand, her feet slipped right off of them, the river pushing her past as she choked and coughed. And then she saw the rock up ahead, a huge one, jutting up several feet from the surface of the river, and around it, a wave of crashing white water, the sound of it filling her ears. Emma managed to get her feet in front of her and take a breath before she was slammed into it. She kicked off with her feet, and the water spun her around and then thrust her down into a hole behind the rock. The force of the rapids pushed her under and held her there, caught in a swirl of water where there was no up or down. There was only darkness and drowning and the panic of knowing she was about to die. Emma's lungs burned, the river pressing in on every side. She kicked her feet, swam as hard as she'd ever swum in her life, harder than the first time Ollie beat her in the race, back before she had gotten used to losing to her little sister. But it didn't matter. She had to breathe. She had to. Spots exploding in the darkness of her vision. Her pack was waterlogged now and pulling her down. All the air trapped inside was gone, and her hands couldn't seem to find the release button for the straps. Everything inside her screamed for air, for light, but she didn't know which way to swim. She was going to die in this river, and no one would find her. She'd never listen to another musical. She'd never hug her mom again. She'd never make up with Abby. A sudden realization hit her, fast and sharp as the river bend. She'd lived her life constantly afraid of everything, and now it was ending. She did not want to drown here all alone, her ears full of the roar of rushing water, the spots in her vision growing, eating away at everything. She pictured her sisters searching for her and never finding her body, weighed down at the bottom of the river by this impossibly heavy pack, its straps dug into her collarbone, and her waist like bony fingers of death. Emma was furious. This pack, this terrible, awful pack. She despised it. No, she hated it. If there was ever a time for strong words, it was now, and this pack had it out for her from the very beginning, rubbing her shoulders raw, slowing her down, making her back ache, and now it was going to kill her. Not if she had anything to say about it. She stopped flailing, stopped trying to swim, and instead focused everything on unclipping those two straps. She got the first one done across her breastbone, then fumbled with the second one around her waist, her fingers slipping off the clip. Her hands didn't have enough energy to push the button hard enough to release the strap. Her lungs burned with the desire to breathe, even if it was water, even if it meant the end. Emma's raw fury ebbed, and she almost gave up. But she thought of Abby and Ollie, and couldn't imagine either of them being defeated by a strap, so neither would she. Emma jabbed once more at the clasp as hard as she could. It snapped open, and the river shot her out. Her head broke the surface of the water, and she sucked in a mouthful of air before the hungry current dragged her back under and around. Rocks scraped against her back, water bubbling everywhere. She thrashed, got her head back above the surface, trying desperately to flow with the river. She could hear the roar of more rapids ahead, could see the white foam of it cresting into small waves. Her teeth chattered with cold, her arms and legs growing heavier as the chill crept inside her muscles and numbed her from the inside out. Her head sank below the surface again. She managed to swim back up, but she couldn't get a breath. Didn't have time to see where she was before she crashed into another rock and then swept around, everything a chaotic blur of roaring water. Emma tried to work her way to the side, to keep her face out of the water, her legs in front to protect her head, but her movements were slowing while the current remained fast, as unstoppable as one of Ollie's plans. And Emma knew she couldn't fight it much longer. The water slowly darkened until she felt like she was drifting through a night sky, everything black and peaceful. She closed her eyes, or maybe they were already closed. She didn't know, and it didn't seem to matter. Nothing seemed to matter. Not anymore.